My name is Alex Murphy, and I'm a chef. Not the kind you see on TV or working the line in a bustling kitchen, but a chef of my own making. I cook at home, mostly for my wife Brenda, and occasionally at some of the restaurants I own that are managed by Brenda. About 5 years ago, I used to cook only at my home for my first wife Rachel. She was the real breadwinner, the CEO of a major movie production company, and money? Well, let's just say that was not a concern in our household. You see, I come from old money. My grandparents had an uncanny knack for the stock market, making investments so brilliant that even now, decades later, the returns keep flowing. The fortune is tied up in a trust, and I'm its sole beneficiary. That means I get a steady income without lifting a finger, though I prefer to spend my time in the kitchen, experimenting with new recipes and perfecting old ones. It sounds like a dream, right? My life is about passion and creativity. I used to cook elaborate meals for my wife, who came home from her high-stakes job, exhausted but grateful. We used to eat together, share a bottle of wine, and sometimes, when the stars align, we make love. That's what life was like, or at least what I thought it was. But 7 years into our marriage, it all went down the drain. You see, my wife's job puts her in the orbit of beautiful people every single day. Models, actors, the kind of faces you see on billboards and magazine covers. And what I didn't realize back then was that, occasionally, she liked to test their skills firsthand. You know what I mean. There I was, a stupid, naive husband, standing in the kitchen, pouring my heart into the meals I made for her. Waiting, always waiting, while she was out drinking from the most desirable watering holes, mingling with people who looked like they stepped out of a dream. But I never doubted her. Not once. Why would I? She made sure of it. She showered me with love in all the ways that mattered, or seemed to matter. She took me out to dinner, where I always picked up the check, of course. We watched movies together, laughing and cuddling like we didn't have a care in the world. She covered her tracks so well, every lie polished to perfection, every excuse carefully placed, like pieces on a chessboard. But as Robert Burns wrote back in 1785, the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. In this case, women. So, the way it all unraveled started with a young man named Clarence Boddicker. He was the kind of guy who thought the world owed him something. A cocky, self-assured blogger riding the wave of quick social media fame. He had a decent following. I'll give him that, but everything about him screamed flash in the pan. The first time I met him was at one of Rachel's company parties. She'd insisted I come along, saying it would be fun, and I wanted to be there for her, to support her. But the moment I walked in, I felt like a prop in a room full of people who lived for the spotlight. Then there was Clarence, striding through the crowd like he owned the place, flashing his smug smile at everyone he passed. He had this air about him, like he'd already decided he was the most important person in the room. When he came over to introduce himself, I could tell right away he was trouble. He extended his hand, and when I shook it, he tried to squeeze harder than necessary, like he was sizing me up. I wasn't about to let him get the upper hand, though. I returned the favor with just enough pressure to make him wince, and I caught the slight twitch in his face before he pulled back and stuffed his hand into his pocket. Then, with all the arrogance in the world, he turned to Rachel and asked her for a dance. And she went with him. I watched them as they danced, my eyes never leaving them. Clarence kept a respectable distance, no silly moves, no wandering hands. Just two people swaying to the music. In less than 2 minutes, Rachel was back by my side, smiling like nothing had happened. It put me at ease, though not completely. To shake off the unease, I took her hand and led her to the dance floor myself. A few hours passed, the party wore on, and I decided to step away for a moment to the men's room. That's when I saw him again. Clarence, leaning against the sink, his tie loosened, his expression smug even now. The moment he saw me, he straightened up and walked over, unsteady on his feet but full of misplaced bravado. "You think you're big, huh? Think you're someone special?" He slurred, his breath reeking of cheap whiskey and too much ego. I stared at him, unimpressed, and calmly told him to back off. But then he smirked, leaned in just enough to make my blood boil, and said, "The mole on her inner thigh looks amazing." That's when everything else faded into white noise. His words hung in the air like a taunt, and in that moment, I knew exactly what he was implying. I turned, closed the distance between us in an instant, and punched him square in the face. He didn't even have time to react, just crumpled to the floor, out cold. I stood there for a moment, my fist still clenched, watching Clarence sprawled on the floor like a crumpled marionette. My heart was pounding, not from exertion but from the weight of what I'd just done. It felt good, I won't lie. but I knew better than to let that feeling linger. If word got out that I'd knocked a guy out at a company party, especially someone like him, the fallout wouldn't just land on me. It'd land on Rachel too. Bad publicity was the last thing either of us needed. So, I took a deep breath, adjusted my tie, and stepped out of the restroom to find the nearest attendant. When I spotted him, I gestured for him to come over. Mr. Bodeker's had a little too much to drink, I said, keeping my tone calm and even. Could you do me a favor? Call a cab, and make sure he gets home safely. The attendant nodded, and I slipped him a couple of bills to ensure he took care of it promptly. As far as I was concerned, Clarence's night, and his presence in my life, was over. I took Rachel by the hand, told her it was time to leave, and we headed home. She seemed none the wiser, chatting about how successful the party had been and how so-and-so had loved the appetizers. I nodded along, but my mind was somewhere else entirely, replaying Clarence's drunken words over and over. The mole on her inner thigh. Was he just trying to get under my skin? Or was there more to it? Was Rachel cheating on me? Had I been blind, cooking for her, waiting for her, loving her? All while she made a fool out of me? I couldn't shake the thought, and the more I tried, the louder it echoed in my mind. I had to know. When we got home, she slipped off her shoes and gave me a warm smile. Normally, I'd have kissed her, maybe even taken her to bed, but that night I couldn't bring myself to touch her. Instead, I told her I was tired, that I just needed to sleep. She didn't press me, just kissed my cheek and went to bed. That was the last time I ever made an excuse not to touch her. The rest of the night, I lay there in silence, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts racing. My mind wouldn't stop. Every laugh she'd shared with someone else, every moment I hadn't been by her side. It all started to seem like evidence. But I wouldn't have to wonder much longer. The suspense was about to end. 2 days later, as I was cleaning up after breakfast, my phone buzzed. At first, I thought it was just a notification or some routine message, but when I opened it, my chest tightened. It was a photo, a bra. Rachel's bra. It was draped over a bedpost, one I didn't recognize. The accompanying text was short, taunting. More to follow. I stared at the screen, my stomach knotting. My hands felt heavy, almost too heavy to hold the phone, but I couldn't put it down. Moments later, another image came through. This time, her clothes scattered across the floor. My mind raced, desperately trying to make sense of what I was seeing, trying to convince myself there had to be some explanation. But then, the next photo shattered any lingering hope. It was Rachel, her naked back, illuminated by soft light. She was lying on her stomach, her head turned away from the camera, completely unaware that someone had taken the picture. The intimacy of the shot, the violation, made my blood run cold. And then came the final message. She's a good in bed. Since you cannot satisfy her, I will. I put my phone down, my hands trembling, and stared blankly at the wedding ring I had taken off earlier to wash the dishes. It felt heavier than ever now, like it was made of lead. Questions swirled in my mind, each one cutting deeper than the last. Should I fight for her? Should I expose her and wreck her reputation? How long has this been going on? Clarence couldn't have seduced her in one morning. This wasn't spontaneous. No, this had to be something deeper, something that had been festering for a long time. The thought of her lying to my face, night after night, while I waited at home, made my stomach churn. I needed clarity, a plan. So, I did what I thought was the best course of action. I picked up the phone and called my lawyer. He didn't ask many questions, just told me to come to his office that afternoon. A few hours later, I found myself sitting across from him, the room filled with the quiet hum of the air conditioning and the faint scent of leather furniture. I laid it all out, the photos, the texts, the betrayal. He listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally, his expression unreadable. When I finished, I leaned back, waiting for his advice, hoping for some direction. After a moment, he leaned forward. Does your wife do any sort of modeling work? He asked, his tone measured. I frowned. No, not that I've ever heard of, I said. And these photos don't look like they were shot in a studio. They're too personal, too candid. He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. All right, we can file the divorce papers, no problem. But I hope you're ready for what comes next. What do you mean? I asked, my voice tense. He sighed, his gaze steady. The old man will be on to you the very next day. I looked at him, feeling the fire of anger and humiliation rise in my chest. So, what do you suggest? I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Should I find a novelty store, buy a cap with horns, and get a gold necklace that says cuck number 1? Reynolds smiled faintly, the kind of smile that said he'd seen this kind of fury before. "I can understand how you feel," he said, his tone calm. "If that's what you want, the papers will be ready in 7 days." He paused, leaning forward slightly. "What do you plan to do once I file?" I glanced out the window, the city skyline a blur as my mind raced. "Once I file the divorce, there will be a fallout," I said, my voice measured but heavy with resolve. "My trust will pull all the money from the production house. She'll run straight to her daddy." Renaud nodded, waiting for me to continue. I let the silence hang for a moment, the weight of my words settling between us. Finally, I turned back to him, my expression cold and certain. "Daddy will come looking for me, but—" I let the sentence trail off, staring at the cityscape. "I'll not be available to talk. I'll take care of my disappearance and the old man," I said, standing up and brushing imaginary dust off my pants. "Just get the papers ready." Renaud gave me a curt nod, his face unreadable as always. I turned and left his office, the sound of my shoes echoing down the hallway as I made my way out. My mind was a storm, every thought colliding with the next, but one thing was clear. I had made my decision. When I got home, Rachel was waiting for me in the living room, perched on the couch with her legs tucked under her. She looked up with that radiant smile she always used, the one that once melted me but now felt hollow. "Honey, where were you?" she asked, her voice sweet and playful. "I'm so hungry, I could eat you up." Before I could respond, she sprang to her feet and came toward me, wrapping her arms around my neck. She leaned in and tried to nibble playfully at my neck, her laughter soft and enticing. But instead of pulling her closer like I usually would, I gently held her back, placing my hands on her shoulders. "I'm a bit tired," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I need to lay down. Order something for yourself." "I'm not hungry," she pouted, her lips forming that familiar little frown, but I didn't wait for her to protest. I walked past her, heading straight to our room. Once inside, I closed the door, leaned against it for a moment, and let out a deep breath. The weight of everything pressed down on me as I peeled off my clothes and stepped into the shower. The hot water cascaded over me, but it didn't wash away the turmoil inside. I stayed there longer than usual, letting the steam fill the room and cloud the mirrors. Finally, I stepped out, dried off, and climbed into bed, staring at the ceiling until exhaustion finally pulled me under. The next day, I woke up to a new message. I didn't even need to check the sender. It was him. Idiot boy. Sure enough, the first one was a picture of Rachel's mole, the one on her inner thigh with the text, "It looks good, I just kissed it." My blood boiled. My hands shook, but I didn't throw my phone across the room like I wanted to. No, I just sat there, staring at it for a moment. I couldn't let him have the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. I had to stay composed. Then, the next message came through. This time, it was a video. I saw him having sex with her, and he was smiling on the camera, mocking me. I put my phone down, my stomach churning, and walked out of the house. I needed to clear my head, to get away from the suffocating feeling of betrayal. As I walked, I realized something. By now, I knew this wasn't Rachel's first fling. It couldn't be. There had to be others I would never find out about. The thought ate at me, but strangely, I didn't feel hurt anymore. I felt nothing. I wasn't going to waste any more time. This marriage was over. I was done. So, I focused on keeping my emotions in check. I made sure that over the next 7 days, I wouldn't let anything slip. I had a plan, and I wasn't about to let anyone, not even Rachel, derail it. The next day, Rachel woke me up with a cheerful voice, her tone light and almost playful. "Honey, your birthday is just 4 days from now," she said, her hands lightly resting on my chest. "Tell me, what do you want for your birthday?" I looked at her, my eyes steady, and without missing a beat, I replied, "I want a loyal and faithful wife." For a split second, I saw her smile falter, and her eyes shifted nervously, almost as if she were trying to find the right words. Then, she quickly regained her composure and smiled back at me, but there was something different in her expression. Something forced. "Do you not have a loving and caring wife, my love?" she asked, her voice almost pleading now. "I love you with all my heart, and I cannot imagine a day in my life without you." I looked at her for a long moment, studying her face. I had heard those words so many times before, but they didn't carry the same weight anymore. I smiled back at her, but it wasn't genuine. "Yes, dear," I said, my voice calm but distant. "We all want a lot of things in life. Some we get, and some we don't." I got out of bed without another word, walked to the bathroom, and shut the door behind me. I didn't bother to cook breakfast for her like I always did. It was the first time in the 7 years we'd been together that I didn't cook for her. The thought of it didn't even faze me. I grabbed my running shoes, stepped outside, and went for a morning jog. I needed the air, the movement, the silence away from everything. And just like that, things had shifted. Something had changed within me. I wasn't just angry. I was done. I wasn't going to play pretend anymore. That evening, when Rachel came home, she called out for me. I wasn't in the house, so she called my phone. I answered, trying to keep my voice casual. "Where are you, honey?" "I'm home." "I need you here," she said, sounding a little anxious. "I'm at a bar, watching the football game," I replied, keeping my tone even. "You should order something for yourself." "I'll be late." Before she could say anything else, I hung up. I didn't want to hear her excuses or try to justify anything. The truth didn't matter anymore. When I returned that night, it was late. I didn't bother to go to our room. Instead, I went straight to the guest bedroom and collapsed on the bed. The silence felt better there. I wasn't ready to face her yet. The next morning, Rachel came in to wake me up. "Why were you late last night?" she asked. "And why weren't you in our bed? Why were you in here?" I just lay there, facing the wall, pretending to be half asleep. "Had a bit much last night," I said, my voice flat. "Wanted to spread out and sleep. Didn't want to disturb you." I could feel her eyes on me, her concern growing, but I didn't care anymore. Then she asked me the question I had been waiting for. "Are you going to cook breakfast?" I didn't even look at her. "I want to sleep a bit more," I muttered, turning away from her. "You can order something. I'll be up later." I could hear the slight disappointment in her voice, but I didn't care. She knew by now something was wrong. I had stopped cooking for her, stopped doing the things I used to do without thinking twice. 5 days had passed, and I hadn't made her breakfast once. She didn't get to have it both ways anymore. That evening, Rachel called me. She said she might be late and that I shouldn't wait for her. I simply replied, "Okay." I didn't feel like pretending anymore, didn't feel like offering any more of my time to her. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a message. I opened it, and my heart sank when I saw the image. It was a sonogram. I zoomed in, barely able to process it, but the name at the top was unmistakable. It read, Rachel Murphy. Then the text came. "I put a baby in her, and you couldn't do a thing about it. Are you even a man?" Some of you might wonder if that challenge bothered me. Well, it did. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, the urge to do something, anything, about it. But was I going to react in a violent manner, like some angry idiot? Not a chance. I had something else planned for that boy, something that would leave him completely blindsided, something he would never have imagined. The video I received that night hit me like a freight train. There was Rachel's face, unmistakable. She was enjoying that idiot boy. My heart dropped. I put my phone down, the weight of it all crashing down on me. I didn't go home that night. I stayed at a motel near the bar. I needed distance, a break from everything. Rachel called me several times, but I didn't answer. I couldn't deal with her right then. The next morning, I was still trying to keep my emotions in check, but I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, 5 men in black suits were standing there, blocking my exit. I knew it was only a matter of time before the old man got involved. The situation was escalating. One of them spoke, cold and direct. "We'll wait for you outside, Mr. Murphy." I didn't argue, told them I'd be out in a few minutes. But then one of the men, taller than the rest, stepped inside the room without saying a word. He moved slowly, scanning the room with precision, checking the bathroom, making sure nothing was out of place. Once he was done, he spoke into his earpiece. "Room is empty. Mr. Murphy is alone in the room." "So, the old man thinks I am cheating on his daughter?" I asked the man. He did not say a word and walked out. I got dressed and went home. All the way I was followed by 3 black SUVs. When I reached home, Rachel was on the couch. I could tell that Rachel was hurting. Her eyes were swollen and red, tears still glistening on her cheeks. She rushed to me the second I walked in, her voice trembling. "Where were you? Why didn't you answer the calls?" I didn't answer immediately. I sank into the couch, letting the weight of everything settle on my shoulders. I was exhausted, emotionally drained. Finally, I spoke, my voice flat. I was too drunk to drive, so I went to the motel and slept there. Her face twisted with anguish. "You never used to drink? And now you have started drinking? You used to cook for me, and now you haven't cooked for me in days." She kept talking, trying to make sense of the changes, but I let the words go past my ears. Then, with a choked voice, she said, "I called the office. I'll be with you all day today. Tomorrow, we'll celebrate your birthday." I stood up to head to the bathroom, needing space. But before I could take a step, she hugged me tightly, pressing herself against me. I didn't respond. I didn't want to. Gently, I pulled away, pushing her just enough to get some distance. I need to go empty my bladders, I said, walking past her without looking back. After I finished in the bathroom, I got dressed and headed out for my morning run. Rachel, watching me, asked, "Isn't it too late for a run?" I glanced at her, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "It's never too late to run for your own good." She must have caught on to the tone because she immediately said, "I'll join you. Please wait." Within minutes, she was dressed in her running shorts and shoes, and we were off. Now, running is something I take seriously. I might be a chef, but I work out every day. So, I made sure to run faster than her, intentionally keeping a distance between us. She was always behind me, not near me, just the way I wanted it. I could tell she was struggling to keep up, but I wasn't about to slow down. After 3 laps, I noticed her sitting on a bench. When I reached her, she said, "Stop, I'm done." I smiled, my voice cold. "I guess you should go. I'll always be out of reach." The messages I was delivering were clear, and I could see that she was starting to understand. By now, she had caught on to the fact that I was aware of her actions. I watched as Rachel made her way back home, and I kept running, pushing myself further. I had to clear my head, to stay in control. When I finally came home, I got dressed in a nice suit. I was just about to leave when I heard her call out, "Honey, where are you going?" I turned and looked at her, my voice calm and steady. "I have some business to take care of." She was surprised, her eyes widening. "You have business outside the home?" I gave her a pointed look. "You might have forgotten. Your company runs on the money my trust invests in it every year. Without that, your company will fold in a matter of days. My trust manager asked me to check some details. Apparently, investing in you has not been profitable so far. The balance sheets are in red, and he's asked me to come and check them." Her face shifted slightly, panic setting in. "Oh, honey, the company has lost some money due to some shows that failed." I didn't say a word. Instead, I turned toward the door and muttered, "I know, honey, a lot of things failed." She opened her mouth, probably to say something else, but I closed the door behind me and left. I reached my trust manager's office and told him clearly, "Pull out all funding from Rachel's company starting tomorrow." I looked him in the eye, making sure he understood the gravity of what I was saying. "I'll be out of the country. Here's my destination. If you leak my whereabouts, I'll have you removed from your position, and I'll sue you for leaking sensitive information." He nodded, his face showing no sign of hesitation. I knew him well, trusted him for years, and I had no doubt that he'd keep his word. I went to my lawyer and told him that it was to be done at my house, and I need to see the video of my wife being served. I gave him my new number and asked him to keep it to himself. He gave me the box I asked him to prepare for my wife. I took the box and went home. When I got home, Rachel wasn't there. I took a deep breath, trying to center myself. The house felt strangely quiet without her. I didn't have to wait long before my phone buzzed. It was a message from her, but this time it wasn't just a text. I opened it, and there was a video. The message that followed said, "It's your birthday, but I'm eating the cake." The video was unmistakable, clear as day. Him spraying whipped cream on her and eating it off her skin. I closed the video without a second thought. I took a moment to calm myself before backing up every message she and her lover had sent me. I forwarded everything to my lawyer, then sent a copy to a number I had saved under the old man, Rachel's father. The messages would be his problem now, not mine. By now, you must be wondering who the hell this old man is. Well, his name is Gregory Moore, a former Marine turned drug lord who runs operations out of Medellin, Colombia. He may be miles away, but his presence was always felt. With operations spanning 34 countries, he's both cunning and ruthless. I know what you might be thinking. Why didn't I just act on my anger and end the idiot boy? Well, if I had, he would have been dead for sure, without me even lifting a finger. But that would have brought Gregory into the picture, and I knew better than to provoke him. If he knew I harmed his daughter's lover, it would have made it impossible for me to leave her. Gregory doesn't tolerate betrayal, and I couldn't risk his wrath. So, I had to remain calm, keep my distance, and leave before he had the chance to react. His love for his daughter was clear, and the 5 men who showed up at the motel confirmed it. They were there because she had called him, without a doubt. I grabbed my passport, a few important documents, and shut my phone down. I placed it carefully in the special box I had brought with me, the one I'd been preparing for this moment. I removed my wedding ring, holding it for a moment before dropping it into the box as well. The last piece of my old life. I then wrote down the security code for my phone and placed that inside the box too. ensuring that there would be no trace of me left behind. Taking one last look around, I opened the door and stepped out, locking it behind me. I walked away, and this time, I knew it was for good. One final time. Now let's check the story from Rachel's side. I married Alex because he was honest and an amazing human. I loved him with every ounce of my being. So, why did I cheat on him? Well, I'm constantly surrounded by men who are incredibly desirable. These are men every woman dreams of, charismatic, successful, and impossible to ignore. Every chance I had to be with them, I took. The first time I cheated was with an up-and-coming singer. He didn't want to, but his contract was on the line. If he refused me, his career could be over. He didn't have a choice. It was fun, in a way. I loved the power of being able to bend these men to my will, to have them when I wanted them. But through it all, the only man who held any significance for me was Alex. I kept Alex at home, loved him with all my heart, but in the office, any man I desired, I took. I know it's hard to understand, but it's how I was. My father is someone I've always respected. He might be a drug lord, but he is a man of principles. My father never wanted this life. He always dreamed of something peaceful, away from the violence that plagued his world. But when my mother was killed in that shootout, everything changed. I was just a little girl, barely able to grasp what was happening, but I remember the day so vividly. It was in the heart of Medellin, a city that had long been known for its chaos. We were on a vacation. That day, my mother and father were caught in the crossfire between rival factions. A hit meant for my father turned into something far worse. Bullets flew through the windows of our car, shattering glass and tearing through flesh. My mother died in his arms, her last breath leaving her in a world that had already claimed so much. After that, everything changed. My father swore vengeance. He wasn't just going to sit back and let them destroy his world. He was going to take it back. The man I once saw as loving and gentle turned into a figure of fear, a ruthless force. He wiped out the entire gang responsible for my mother's death, leaving no trace behind. I've heard the stories, the whispers of how he became a man that even the hardest criminals feared. No one dared cross him again, and the world took notice. But in the end, my mother's death wasn't just the catalyst for his vengeance. It was the beginning of a life he never wanted for himself or for me. He kept me away in the USA, and he stayed in Medellin. Now, the mistake I made was taking Clarence Boddicker to my bed. What I didn't realize at the time was that he would become the cause of my marriage breaking down. Clarence kept pestering me to divorce my husband, as he is holding me down. I know for a fact that he is the only one who is holding me where I am today. Clarence kept pestering me, telling me that Alex was holding me back, that I could do so much better. He would say things like, "You deserve more than him. He's not enough for someone like you." But I knew the truth. I knew for a fact that Alex was the one who had been there for me, supporting me through everything, and without him, I wouldn't be where I am today. He was the one who believed in me when no one else did. Without his support, I wouldn't have the career or the life I had. But I never admitted that in public. To everyone else, I had to be the strong, independent woman. I couldn't let anyone see the truth of it all. One evening, as we were having sex in his bed, Clarence once again tried to berate Alex, telling me that I needed to leave him behind. I don't know what came over me in that moment, but I couldn't stand it anymore. The words he said about Alex, about the man who had been nothing but good to me, were too much to bear. So, I slapped Clarence across his face. It wasn't something I'd ever done before, but it felt right. "You would be lucky if you could be 1/10 the man Alex is," I told him, my voice steady, yet laced with anger. I meant every word of it. Alex was a good man, and Clarence was nothing but a spoiled, arrogant child trying to tear down the person who actually mattered. I guess that should have been the end of it. I should have pulled the plug on the affair right there, made it clear that I wasn't willing to listen to Clarence anymore. I should have walked away from him and been true to my husband, but I didn't. Instead, I let it linger. Maybe I wasn't ready to let go of that part of me. The part that was desperate for excitement, for validation, for the thrill that Clarence seemed to give me. Maybe I wanted to keep playing the game, even if it was slowly destroying everything I held dear. Eventually, I decided to pull the plug on the affair when I found out I was pregnant. It should have been a wake-up call, a clear sign that I needed to get my life together. But somehow, Clarence managed to convince me to keep going just a little longer. He told me it wasn't the right time to end things, that we could figure everything out, that I deserved more. And somehow, I bought into it. I agreed, even though deep down, I knew it was wrong. But then Alex started changing. It was subtle at first. He stopped cooking for me, something I could never have imagined happening. He used to be the one who would cook us dinner, taking such pride in it. But suddenly, it wasn't something he did anymore. And then came the silent jabs, the little comments, the way he looked at me sometimes. It was like he was trying to push me away, and I could feel it. The real turning point came when I went for a run with him. My old Alex would have been by my side, encouraging me, making sure I kept up with him. But this time, he didn't even glance back. I was running behind, and he didn't care. I knew right then that I had messed up. He wasn't the man I married anymore. I had broken something between us, and it was too late to fix it. The day he didn't come home, I panicked. I tried calling him, but he didn't answer. I didn't know what to think, and fear crept into my chest. I had to call my dad. Within 40 minutes, they tracked him down to a motel. My dad was furious, demanding that they find out exactly what Alex was doing. If Alex is cheating, he said, I'll kill him right there. The thought of Alex being with someone else made me feel sick, but deep down, I knew he wouldn't do that to me. They checked the room, of course, and made sure to review the security footage. It was hard to breathe as I waited for them to confirm what I already knew. Alex wasn't cheating. They saw the footage, and it showed that he came in alone. The relief I felt was overwhelming, but at the same time, I couldn't shake the guilt. The changes in him, the distance between us, all of it, it was because of me. And I had no idea that it was going to get worse. Then came the day of his birthday. I had made a decision to celebrate it with Alex, to try and make things right between us. But once again, I gave in to my desires. I went to Clarence's place, unable to resist the temptation, and we had some wild sex. It was exhilarating, but I knew, deep down, that I was betraying the man I loved. Afterward, I did something else I thought was necessary, something I believed would be the start of a new chapter. I got the baby aborted. I had convinced myself that I would be faithful to Alex, that we would start a family together. But that day I made a choice that would alter everything. When I got back home, though, I was met with an emptiness I wasn't prepared for. The house felt cold and abandoned. I called out for him, hoping he was just somewhere out of sight, but no answer came. Panic crept in as I searched every room, but he was nowhere to be found. Then, I spotted it. A black box, neatly packed, sitting on the table. My heart raced as I walked over to it, unsure of what I would find. I opened it cautiously, and there it was, his phone. My breath caught in my throat. Why would he leave his phone behind? There was also a note with a pin, but that didn't make sense. And then, I found 2 envelopes. The smaller one caught my attention first. I opened it, my hands shaking. Inside, there was a message that made my heart stop. I know it all, and now it is over. Tell your boy Toy, he can have you. The guilt, the shame, everything I had done to him. It was all laid out for me to see. Alex knew, and it was over for me. I quickly opened the larger envelope, my hands trembling with fury. Inside, there were images, pictures of me and Clarence, text exchange between him and Alex. The betrayal was clear. I could feel the anger building up inside me, my heart pounding. Clarence had destroyed my marriage. He took away the one thing that meant everything to me, Alex. The rage inside me was consuming, and I vowed that he would pay for what he had done. I would make sure of that. Just as I stood there seething, the doorbell rang. My heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, I thought it was Alex. Maybe he had come back. Maybe he had forgiven me. I rushed to the door, almost too quickly, and threw it open. But it wasn't Alex. A man in a shabby suit stood there, his expression unreadable. He looked me up and down and asked, "Are you Mrs. Rachel Murphy?" I nodded, barely able to speak, still hoping against hope that it was Alex behind him. Yes. He handed me a manila envelope without another word. "Here, you have been served," he said, snapping a picture of me before turning and walking away. I stood frozen, unable to comprehend what had just happened. I closed the door slowly, my legs giving way beneath me. I collapsed onto the floor right there in the hallway. A few minutes later, I gathered the strength to open the envelope. My hands shook as I slid out the papers. It was what I had feared. Divorce papers. The reason? Adultery. I felt my heart shatter into a million pieces. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind was racing, the weight of everything crashing down on me all at once. I tossed and turned, replaying every moment, every mistake I had made. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to talk to someone. I needed my father, even if I knew he wouldn't make things better. I grabbed my phone and dialed his number, feeling the lump in my throat tighten as the line rang. When he finally picked up, I didn't even know where to begin. So I just blurted it out, telling him everything. Every detail, every mistake, every betrayal. I told him what I had done, how I had ruined everything with Alex, how I had destroyed my marriage and let Clarence into our lives. There was a long silence on the other end. I could feel the anger and disappointment seeping through the phone. When he finally spoke, his words were cold, distant. "That boy you were sleeping with has been taken care of," he said, his voice flat. "And I'm very disappointed in you. Maybe my karma has ruined my family as well. I don't blame what Alex has done. I've decided that no harm will come to Alex, and I won't help you find him." I was stunned, my heart sinking with every word. The silence that followed felt suffocating. He didn't even give me a chance to respond. With that, he hung up. The line went dead in my ear, and I was left in the silence of my own guilt. The next morning, I got a call from my office. June, my secretary, was on the other end. Her voice was strained, and I could sense something was wrong. "Rachel, Clarence, he's dead. They found him hanging at his home. The cops are saying he did it to himself." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I heard June's voice, but it felt like everything was muffled. My mind went blank, and all I could think was, it should have been me. I had been the one to start all of this. I had been the one to destroy everything, and now I had lost it all. I barely processed the rest of the call before I hung up. I couldn't handle any more of it. I had to find Alex. I had to make things right, but no one was willing to help me. I called my dad, but he refused. His lawyer was just as cold, and even Alex's trust manager didn't budge. They all shut me out, refusing to help me, to point me in the right direction. My own father wouldn't lift a finger. Then, after a year of endless fighting, the divorce was final. I had lost. Everything I had ever worked for, everything I had ever cared about, was gone. My company had shut down because I had no funds left. My personal life was in ruins, and I had no one left. I was alone. I deserved it. Every single bit of it. I decided to visit my father in Medellin, hoping that maybe being close to him would offer some sort of solace, even though I knew he'd been distant. He wasn't warm or welcoming, but he did give me a room in his mansion, and that was enough. At least I wasn't completely alone. It had been over a year since I had seen Alex, and every day I thought about him. The emptiness in my chest never fully went away. One afternoon, I finally decided to get some fresh air, to clear my mind. As I walked through the city, trying to shake off the suffocating thoughts, I stumbled upon a restaurant. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw him, Alex. He was there, in a chef's uniform, cooking with such focus and grace. It was surreal. But then something else caught my attention. A woman walked up to him, smiled, and kissed him. My heart shattered in that moment. Seeing him with someone else, it tore me apart. But that wasn't even the worst part. As I stood frozen, trying to process what I was seeing, I noticed my father sitting at one of the tables. He was eating his meal, watching everything unfold without so much as a hint of surprise. I was crushed. I had never felt more alone. I was betrayed by my own father. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I rushed toward the table, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind a whirlwind of anger and hurt. My feet were moving before I even realized it. "How could you, Alex?" I screamed, my voice shaking with fury. I wanted to hurt them, all of them. Him, her, my father. How dare she kiss him? How dare they take him from me? The rage was consuming me. I could feel the heat of it rushing through my veins as I pushed past the guard, who had the nerve to try and stop me. Without thinking, I grabbed his pistol from the holster and aimed it at her. She was smiling, unaware of what was about to happen. She didn't deserve him. She didn't deserve the love I lost. I tightened my grip on the gun, my finger itching to pull the trigger. And then, before I could even think, there was a deafening bang. My world collapsed in on itself, and everything went black. Now let's check the story from Alex's side. The sound of the gunshot still rang in my ears, too loud, too harsh. I watched her collapse in front of me, her body crumpling to the floor. It didn't seem real. My mind couldn't process it. Was she dead? Was this really happening? But then, I felt his presence. Gregory. He stepped forward, the smoke still rising from the gun in his hand. His gaze was steady, cold, unflinching. He placed a hand on my shoulder. His touch was surprisingly gentle, but it did nothing to ease the storm raging inside of me. "She will live," he said, his voice low and firm, almost like a command. I looked at him, still struggling to make sense of it all. "Why?" My voice trembled, unsure of what I was even asking. Gregory gave me a long, heavy look. "You've been hiding for too long, son. It's time to stop running. You need to go back to your life. You and Brenda have my blessings. Get married. Have a family. I'll take care of Rachel here." The ambulance arrived quickly, and they took Rachel away, her eyes still locked on me. It was almost as if she was trying to tell me something with that gaze, but I couldn't decipher it. I watched her go, and everything felt so surreal. The next morning, I packed my bags. It felt like time was slipping through my fingers, but I knew I had to leave. After everything that had happened, I couldn't stay there anymore. When I had sent the evidence to Gregory before my divorce with his daughter, he called me on my new number. "You cannot hide from me, son," he said. The next thing he said was that he was sorry for what his daughter has done and understands why I am divorcing her. He said that he would have done the same thing. Then he asked me to come to Medellin and stay there, assured me that Rachel would never find me here. A few days later, I made the trip to Medellin, uncertain but somehow ready to embrace whatever came next. Gregory wasn't one to offer help without expecting something in return, but he didn't say much about that at the time. Instead, he asked me to work in a restaurant as a chef. It was simple, and honestly, it felt like the best thing I could do for myself. Cooking had always been my passion, and it felt good to get back to it without all the distractions. Soon, I met Brenda. She was different from anyone I had ever known. She was down to earth, grounded, and had come from a humble background. Her simplicity was refreshing, and I found myself drawn to her more and more. We started dating, and as time went on, I knew I wanted to take things further. I wanted to marry her. I could see a future with her, a life without the chaos and manipulation I had once known. It felt like a new beginning, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Well, here I am now, 5 years later. I'm still cooking for my wife, Brenda, but we found a balance. She cooks for me at least one meal every day. Timothy, our son, is now 1 year old. He's healthy and growing fast. It's incredible how much joy he brings to our lives, how everything just feels right. There are days when I forget about the past, when the memories of Rachel and all the chaos seem distant, but then I'll get a call from Gregory. He calls often, and every time, he asks to see pictures of Timothy. I know it's his way of keeping tabs on me, keeping a connection to my life, even from afar. A few days ago, he called again. He informed me that Rachel still isn't over me. He told me she's been put in a mental institution. I knew, deep down, that something like this could happen. It was almost as if the final chapter of that nightmare had been written. Rachel's obsession had destroyed her in the end, and now she's in a place where she can't hurt anyone, including herself. It felt strange, hearing that news after all this time. I didn't know how to process it, but I knew one thing for sure. I was done with that part of my life. I had moved on. I had Brenda and Timothy, and that's all that mattered to me now.